Hi everyone and welcome once again to Ruby's Classic Cooking. And today I'm making carrot cake. Yay! And I'm using my food processor. Now if you don't have a food processor, there's other ways of making this carrot cake besides the food processor. But anyway, I'm going to grind up my carrots in my food processor as I have a special disc for grinding. And that becomes very, very handy and easy and fast. So just watch while I do this, and I won't make you listen to this, but here it goes. There you go. 3 carrots done. Now I'm going to do an apple. Just going to throw that all in my thing. I quartered it. Now my carrots, of course, before I put them into the food processor, I peeled them and I cut the ends off of them. So they were ready to go. Now my apples, I've just cored these and taken the blossom and the stalk end out. I left the peelings on them. So I'm just going to put these through my food processor, and here we go. Now you can just use any kind of a grater, like one of those old school box graters. Just watch out for your fingers. And that's done. That's how fast a food processor is when it's doing up stuff like this. So let's take these little bits out that it didn't get. Now you're supposed to measure this to make sure there's at least 2 cups, but you know what? I never bothered because I figure 3 carrots, that's going to be enough. I take this part out, that's my grater and my extra extender here, and I put in my knife blade. So let's just kind of find a spot, way to put this down here. Now, I coarse grated these because I'm just going to leave these in here. You're supposed to dump them out and stuff, but I never bother with that either. I just leave them in here. And then, since they're coarse grated, as I do other things in here, they'll get a little finer. And you kind of want them to sort of disappear. Anyway, you don't really want them to be in here. I'm doing this, I got to be careful not to cut my fingers open on the blade. Not a nice thing to do to yourself. So those blades are very sharp. Now, I've got 3 eggs over here. They go in next. Now, let's just put in 3 eggs. No shells, please. 1, 2. So, my 3 eggs are in here. Now I'm going to add 1 1/4 cups of white sugar. I've got my measuring cup over here. Alright, 1 1/4 cups of sugar. And that just goes right in here on top, because I'm going to do those together in the food processor. Here we go. And I'm just going to process these together for 1 minute. And while my machine is running, I'm going to add 1 cup of oil. This is olive oil. And then I'm going to let it run for another 45 seconds and then pretty much mixed up here. So here we go. Okay, and now here we go with the dry ingredients. And to my 2 cups of flour, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking soda. This is baking soda. Make sure they're level. Level them off with the box here. Just kind of level them off here with the box. So 2 teaspoons of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. This is baking powder, not baking soda. Whatever brand is available in your neighborhood. 1 teaspoon. And level, because I always cut the paper that's inside, I cut it level so that I have a nice level spot to flatten off my teaspoon to make sure I'm getting a level teaspoon. That's important too. Level teaspoon. And that's followed by 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. We'll level that off. I'm not quite so precise with my cinnamon as I am with my baking powder and baking soda, because baking powder and baking soda represent a chemical reaction, whereas this is flavor. I want a little more flavor, I add a little more cinnamon. And I also have 1 cup of raisins to add in there too. Now this is a cake that's got lots and lots of veggies and good food value, right? Along with your flour, your baking powder, your eggs. You also have carrots, apples, and raisins. So it's a very nutritious kind of cake, really. I'm just going to give that a little stir up, although with the food processor you don't really need to. So in goes this one. All of it is going in at once. because this is a food growth processor, so I don't have to worry about adding liquid, dry, liquid, dry. Just straight into the food processor bowl it goes. And now that my flour is in there, it's 2 or 3 quick on-off turns, and you don't push. This is the pusher thing you put in. You leave that out when you're doing this sort of stuff. But I just keep my hand over here because otherwise sometimes flour comes flying up all over the place. So I'm just going to pulse this 3 or 4 times so my flour is absorbed. Okay, I did more than 2, 3. And now I'm just going to add in my 1 cup of raisins. There you go. And while I've got this lid off, I'm going to give this a quick scrape down because I do have some things that are up here that need to be combined into the main cake baking. There's my scraper here to just get those down in there where they belong. Okay. Lid goes back on. And now I'm just going to process this with a few quick on-off turns, because I don't want to chop my raisins down into nothing. I want them to be raisins. I don't want them to be little, well, if you leave it running too long, they'll just become like little bits of unidentifiable, anyway. You want people to know they're raisins. And that's it. That's all there is to it. And now I'm going to go get my 9x13 pan and move this out of the way. Now this recipe says you can use a 9-inch bunt pan or a 9x13 pan, which I prefer to use this kind of pan than a bunt pan when I'm doing this cake. I like the shape of it better for carrot cake. So now I'm just going to pour my batter. Lift this out of here, lift this and scrape this off. And I'm going to pour that batter into my pan. I already greased it using my pastry brush, and I just put a nice coating of olive oil all over my pan. You can use whatever kind of oil you like because that's what it calls for, is just oil. Now I'm just going to dump this out into my cake pan. Then I'm going to bake this in my preheated 350 degree Fahrenheit, which I think that's 173 degrees Celsius, but don't worry, it'll all be in the description file below when I post this recipe, when I post this up. All the metric will be in my description box below. Okay, now the cake is in here, and now I'm all ready to pop my cake into my preheated 350 degree Fahrenheit oven for 40 to 50 minutes, and I'll be back when it's all cooked and ready to show you. Hi everyone, well, it's been 50 minutes for me. It's been no time at all for you, and here's my cake all cooked and delicious from the oven. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? I'm going to take my cake tester. You can use a toothpick for this, and I'm just going to poke my cake here a few times, and my cake tester is coming out clean. That means my cake is done. Also, you can notice that it's pulling away from the pan on the sides. That's also an indication that it's cooked. So now I'm going to let my carrot cake cool to room temperature, and then I'm going to make cream cheese icing to put on top. And tomorrow I'm going to take this to a potluck supper. So I hope that you enjoyed watching my video today, and that you'll like and subscribe and make some comments below and try this recipe out. I hope you have a food processor. I'll be making the icing today or tomorrow, later today or tomorrow. I'll be making the icing, and when I do, I'll videotape that as well. I'll tell you, if you have a food processor and you're making icing, any kind of icing, get yourself some icing recipes and that are done. Some food processor icing recipes, because you know what? Making icing in the food processor is almost as fast as opening a can of icing from the store. And you just need icing sugar and a few basic ingredients, and you can make icing that's just as good as anything you bought. Anyway, I'll be back later to show you the part 2 of this, which will be the icing for the top of my cake. Until then, it's bye for now. Hi everybody, and welcome once again to Ruby's Classic Cooking. And today I'm making cream cheese icing to go on my carrot cake. So let's get started right away. This is going to take about 10 seconds to do. Alright, I already have measured out 1/4 cup of butter and 1/2 cup, which is 125 grams or 4 ounces of cream cheese. So those go right into my food processor bowl, because this is a food processor recipe. It goes along with my food processor carrot cake. So just kind of cut these up. You're supposed to soften the butter and soften the cream cheese, so I just kind of left them out here to soften. And now to this, let me just put some butter over here. Mix this together a little bit. Now I'm going to add 2 cups of icing sugar, confectioner sugar, whatever you call the kind of sugar that's so super, super fine, and use it for buttercream icing. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm using here. That's different names in different parts of the world. So there's 1 cup of icing sugar. And there's 2 cups of icing sugar. And of course you know that when you're making icing, if you don't like the consistency, add a bit more icing sugar. So I just keep my measuring cup here, and I might have to add a bit more. And to this I also add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. If I was doing this on my own and not videoing it for you, I wouldn't even bother measuring this. I would just kind of wave the box of salt over my over my food processor. There you go. Salt in. Now we get the lid on. Just gonna knock this off a bit. And I have clean hands, by the way, those of you who are worried about that. There we go. Now, run your processor for 10 seconds and it's done. And this is going to be just as nice as any icing you opened a can to get. So here we go. 10 seconds. And that, I'm just going to scrape this down a little bit because there's a bit of icing sugar up here. But that is ready to go on my cake right now. Just let it go until it kind of looks good. And then you just put it on your cake. And there is my cream cheese icing. See that? Isn't that gorgeous looking? Beautiful, creamy icing. Now let me just get rid of this base. And I'll bring over the cake and we'll get this icing on here. Now I'm just going to take a nice healthy scoop out of here and I'm just going to put this on my cake. And put it in blobs so that I can spread it nice and evenly over the top of my cake. Don't leave a bunch of icing behind in the bowl. Alright, there's my bowl emptied out of icing. I'm just going to take this last little bit off of my spatula. There we go. Now, spread it out to the corners all over the top of the cake. I love carrot cake. You don't have to take it out of the pan. You grease your pan, and then when you get where you're going, then you just have to cut it. So it looks really nice, and you don't have to worry about taking it anywhere because it's in this nice 9x17 pan. Makes a nice thick layer of cream cheese icing on top of here. And there we go. We just spread that out all over my cake. And here's my finished cake, all ready to go to the potluck. All carrot cake, all iced with cream cheese icing. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching my video today, and I hope that you will like, subscribe, and come back and see me next time on Ruby's Classic Cooking. Bye for now.